Good to go. Are we ready?
Yep.
Okay. welcome to Straight Talk, a place where we dot the I's and cross the T's with your host, the Liquid Monkey, and our two recurring guests, Professor Redpill, a man savvy in the matters of international political intrigue, and Punish Gusano, a young man navigating the treacherous world of the American college campuses. Before we continue, give us some love by pushing the like button and subscribe to our channel. We're on Rumble at Straight Talk. Gentlemen, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you.
Now, it seems now that we're living in a very, very, very interesting week. Since that yesterday, the first libertarian president has been elected in Argentina, and also it seems that there's been much of the support and condemnation by many leaders in the world. Before we start, can you give us a little rundown of what's been happening in the Middle East and in the Russian-Ukraine conflict as we speak?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the Middle East is concerned, Colonel McGregor was on Judge Napolitano's podcast on YouTube. He was talking about basically what I've been saying on the podcast for a month now. That basically Israel or the IDF has got into a stalemate, and the more they push into Gaza, the more resistance they're getting. And he's saying it's looking similar to that of the Russia-Ukrainian conflict. So in the Russia-Ukrainian conflict, like I said, I wrote in January, and said many times on the podcast in our Telegram group, that I thought that basically Ukrainian conflict would come to an end at the end of summer, early fall, which we're at right now. So I predicted that almost to the T. And right now, apparently, Anthony Blinken is in Kiev as we speak, explaining to Zelensky, we have to do a peace deal with Russia.
How is Zelensky going to fare after all of this? I mean, remember 2 years ago he was in total obscurity. 1 year ago he was hailed as a world hero, and now he's being ridiculed. I remember seeing him in begging for money on England, and he was thoroughly ignored. How is he as a person beyond his political party, him as an institution? How is he going to fare?
I mean, as I said before, the situation is that he's losing support. He's lost support.
I'm sorry, I got a little tired on the hope. Just one single, get rid of it.
Okay. Anyway, so like I said, the situation is that he's after several failed counteroffensives, the U.S. is no longer backing or wants to back Zelensky because he can't produce. There's massive casualties on the Ukrainian side. They're losing hundreds, if not thousands, of people, every week. I mean, we don't even know what the number is. I mean, there's estimates as high as 500,000 Ukrainians have been killed in action since the start of this conflict.
Two words coming to my mind: demographic collapse. Would that be the case in Ukraine as the war continues to unfold and seems to be so appalling and overwhelming for the Ukrainian people?
I mean, the situation is, the reason why he's asking for money is because Ukraine is broke. Most of the fighting is occurring in the most fertile area of the country where a lot of the wheat is grown, and those farms have been abandoned and they're not producing food. And on top of that, the ports are closed pretty much, so they can't even ship they can't even ship grain if they wanted to, due to the hostilities in the hot zones. So the reality is that Ukraine is not bringing in revenue. It is a failed state, and without the United States, supporting Ukraine, it's going to collapse within weeks, if not months, if not weeks. As soon as, just like Afghanistan, like I said, when they started talking about pulling out, you started to see the systematic collapse to the point where they just completely just left. They did an about face. They could not contain. They couldn't do a proper pullout because just money stopped coming in and people stopped going to work and soldiers stopped showing up. And it's going to be the same thing with Ukraine. Eventually, it's going to be chaos. And then, like I predicted, Ukraine is going to become a failed state, and there's going to be a lot of corruption and a lot of it's going to be hell on earth, economically speaking.
I would imagine, by the things you're telling me, that there's going to be a massive desertion. It's like people simply got the remaining soldiers are going to say, "Fuck it," and they'll just throw
they're already
like simply. I mean, what am I doing this for? I mean, the image that Zelensky is giving. I mean, I'm an Argentine, so I mean, I have nothing to do with it, and I see it on television just as I'm zapping on TV. What do I see? A guy completely out of his depth, doing something that he doesn't believe in. And if I was in Ukraine fighting and dying in the trenches for that guy, I would just say, and I'm not gonna get paid. There's nothing I can do. Why am I risking my life for? And I just drop it.
Yeah.
Isn't that the sentiment of the Ukrainian citizen on foot? The guy is on the trench. Especially now that I saw last week that it may not be true, but I believe it is out of common sense, because I know how related that women are showing up in the trenches, dying on the trenches. Women. If I was a Ukrainian soldier, I would be furious. If I was a Ukrainian citizen, even so. And this brings me another question: how was the Russian faring on this war? Are the Russians bleeding like the Ukrainians, or are they more into how do you call it, into a more regular order and sane policies in regarding their army? I mean, are they in a desperate fight, or are they simply just taking it easy? Because as I understand, the Russians are very cold-hearted and very cold-minded in the application of warfare, as I may have learned after the lessons of World War II and Afghanistan in the 80s. How is the Russian military and also the Russian nation faring on this conflict?
I mean, the situation is that Russia has taken down casualties, but the thing is that for the most part, Russia has won. They've accomplished their goals to liberate Donbass and to fortify Crimea and to denazify and disarm the Ukrainian military. That's the final step. Is basically the last two things I just said, and they're pretty close to that at this point.
But it's not over yet.
Well, it's over. It's done. When there's no longer money coming in from the U.S. government, because we're about ready to hit a major global depression and a major recession in the United States, China's already in depression. So, I mean, we're going to hit an economic doomsday not seen since the Great Depression. I mean, I'm predicting up to 70% of wealth being obliterated within a year. There's no way the United States can fund Ukraine. They can't fund Ukraine, and they can't fund a war in Israel, let alone a conflict with China at this point. They're already running out of equipment to send. There's not, if they send any more equipment, they won't have enough equipment to defend the United States in case of an invasion. It's that level at this point. Supply lines are shut down. They're not manufacturing anything as they were pre-COVID or pre-bug rather. It's not looking good. And I mean, on top of that, there's water shortages in the West Coast. Do you know what's vital in the West Coast? Agriculture. California is one of the largest producers of agriculture for the country. And there are farms without water, crops not being, and different types of, they dealt with a hurricane not too long ago that destroyed a lot of stuff, a lot of infrastructure. There's all kinds of stuff going on. I mean, we are in like a doomsday Armageddon style collapse. I mean, it is here. We were saying enjoy the decline. we are here at this present time in the West. We are at collapse level proportions.
Collapse as in the halting of the economic wheels, not so much as the destruction of wealth, but because of political turmoil, the wheels of money and production are just stopping, grinding to a halt.
Yeah, I mean, basically, you look back at the Roman Empire, and the Roman Empire collapsed with consistent and continual crisis. If you go back to the classics and Roman history, they had several plagues, economic turmoils, military invasions, and these different types of crisis were happening frequently to the point where it just ended.
Let's go to the rank and file citizen who are listening to us. If you were to speak as you are to the people listening to us, what are the sane steps to follow from now on? If you let's just say that you are a 20-something-year-old guy who is making up into the world, and you need to receive a sane, sound advice. What advice would that be?
I mean, the thing is like like the preppers, so to speak, or like people that prepared for crisis. I mean, obviously, learning trades is important. It might be a bit late now, but knowing a trade is the same thing as like creating wealth. I mean, it's like if you know a trade and you know a skill, you can at least have some type of employability. Because I mean, let's face it, if you in America right now, the services are deteriorating along with the food shortages and other types of crises that I'm discussing. I mean, we had a epidemic crisis followed by a conflict, a war crisis, followed by some economic crisis with the banking collapse. You remember the several banks that collapsed, FTX crisis, followed by now an Israeli crisis, and then a debt ceiling crisis that we're in now. And I don't even want to go back to before the pandemic with the economic crisis with the election. So I mean, we are just consistently seeing crisis after crisis after crisis in a short period of time. And I don't even want to talk about the ecological and the weather crisis, natural disaster crisis, with the fires in Hawaii and hurricanes in
Australia.
Florida that caused and the hurricanes in Florida that caused massive devastation. I mean, we're talking about it was the most destructive storm since like Andrew. I mean, we are in serious crisis, and not only that, but the cost of insurance is skyrocketing for homes in Florida. The cost of home ownership is skyrocketing. I mean, taxes are going up. Salaries are stagnant. Banks are not lending. Interest rates are skyrocketing. We're in stagflation. We have high interest rates and high inflation. We haven't seen that since the 70s, since the oil crisis. And even before, I got another. I mean, the other thing too, we had an oil crisis as well. With negative oil prices, and then we had an oil crisis where oil was skyrocketing. So I mean, and not only that, right now we are like months away from a diesel shortage crisis in the United States and Europe. So like I said, it's little pins and needles and the straws to the point where the straw that broke the camel's back. What's that going to be to cause complete collapse of House of Cards? That's the question that should be asked.
I want to digress a little bit because just when you mentioned Hawaii, I just can't shake the images of such artificial fires. When, for instance, some houses that were not affected, having the joke that says if Oprah and The Rock were audacious enough to ask you for a billionaire and a millionaire ask you for money for donations, you can ask that girl out. The joke. But this is the thing. What's your impression about that? Because as I understand, isn't Hawaii have one of the most sophisticated, advanced, and effective emergency systems for staving
Like
off?
preparations.
Yes, and eventually all these were conveniently shut down, and some members were paid off. What do you make out of it?
I mean, the thing is like you have FEMA, which is a disaster response team, and I don't even want to mention the train derailment in Ohio. That was another crisis. I mean, it's like this stuff's coming to my mind. Just how many crises have occurred in like 4 years. 4 years, major crisis, stuff that happens every like within a lifetime, and it's happening simultaneously at the same time. However, sorry, Mario, there's a mention in the chat from if I can pronounce this right, the Larian Master. He's saying that these artificial crises, there is no room for real failures, which will happen at one point.
Who's and sorry, let's go back. Who says this?
No,
So I
no,
can
it's from the Rumble chat. It's from the Rumble chat.
Oh, okay.
I'll say it again. Yeah, he's saying these are artificial crises. There is no room for more for real failures, which will happen at one point.
So, in a way, would it be that the powers that be would be interested in fostering a small crisis to create a much larger one? Like when you put a small explosive into an explosive to make it blow even hard, even bigger.
No, I mean, I think what he's saying is basically these crises are self-created due to incompetence at the government level, greed, and other types of factors that could be avoidable if we had a sustainable system of people that cared more about the country than about their wallet and their pride. And the situation is if we get a real crisis like he's talking about, the straw that breaks the camel's back, if there is a real crisis in the United States or the globe for that matter, it's the end. It's done. A loss.
This is the thing is that some once I heard about it says that the idea that the human being believes that the human beings, the mankind believes that there is an evil, all-encompassing conspiracy elite trying to manipulate themselves and dominate, it's a more reassuring thought than assuming the reality that is that we as human beings are not as smart as we used to be, as we think we are, because we allow people who are lesser than us, than the majority, to rule us by believing in the lies that they make us. So the principle of Hanlon says, do not attribute to evil what can be explained through stupidity. So let's imagine for a second, to all the dear audience and ourselves, that there is no elite, that there is no Jewish banking cabal, there is no Illuminati, there is no Freemasons. That yes, although these people exist, they are not as effective as we want to think they are. And they are simply trying to advance their interests because they just want to live a better life that they can afford.
Yeah,
which leads us to yes.
Oh, go ahead. No, I'm just saying the thing is these, the situation is yeah, I mean, there are, some elites and 1%ers that have influence, but the reality is that it's not so much that there's a controlled conspiracy. I think it's just basically greed and incompetence. That's the simple. That's the Malcolm's razor. The simple answer: greed and incompetence. That's it.
Yes, essentially, it's like the world. There is a much worse concept, which is the following: the world is rudderless. We are drifting away. Are we doing what we can in order to survive from the very little, which is what ourselves, our families, our community, to the world itself? And sometimes we make it right by putting a man to the moon. But the thing is that if we are to believe in something, uh, tell us about the lack of leadership that we are suffering. I believe that here in the, well, we now elected a president that we want him to be a leader. I mean, clearly, human beings, we do what we can. I mean, the thing is, the only sin that is unforgivable is willful harm. But apart from it, we do what we can. I mean, even the people you don't like is doing what they can with the tools they have. But if you were to explain to us about the real and the convenient traits that a leader should have, what would that be? What those traits would be to make us leaders?
Yeah, I mean the thing is that there are different types of styles, like I said, that we've seen in the past. Generally, the authentic leadership style is one that I would say is most ideal for a political leader. And this authentic leadership style is basically someone who is effective at communications. They're active listeners. They're able to listen. They take input from the group and their team, and they make decisions collaboratively as opposed to tyrannically. And they look out for the interest of not only their team, but they look out for the interest of their organization or their country. And above all, they lead by example. And one of the great examples I can give for an authentic leader in the past is like Augustus Caesar, and during Rome's most prosperous time, George Washington in the United States in the Revolution. George Washington's interesting because he was not a very successful general before he entered the Revolutionary War. He lost more battles than he's won. But the reality is that through his ability to communicate effectively and lead and take it, he would ask his generals input in the battlefield. He would say, "Hey, what do you guys think? What should we do?" And he would take that information collaboratively, and he would make a decision based off of his group's thoughts and decisions. And through that type of leadership, the United States exists today.
What seems to be, it seems that my impression is that the West, not just United States, but the whole West, we're talking about Europe, United Kingdom, Australia, and has run out of leaders. I mean, we have pastiches, we have caricatures. We don't have, like, what happened to, for example, I'm not going to say Churchill or Roosevelt. Let's go a little bit like François Mitterrand or Margaret Thatcher. That, as an Argentine, it hurts me because it hurts me to admire her, but I cannot stop doing that. I mean, these, even we're talking about 40 years ago. We're not talking about such long ago. What happened in the West that we elected such clownish, soft, substanceless human beings, excuses to lead us? For example, because I would like to ask your opinion about this. Do you think Vladimir Putin is a good leader? Away from the moral judgment we can make out of him. Let's talk about effectiveness and let's talk about getting shit done. What happened to the West?
Yeah, I mean the thing is, yeah, to answer your question, as far as leadership and the lack of backbone, or just in a society like the United States, which is a government of the people, for the people, and by the people, it's a representative republic. And by that reason, the leadership reflects upon the populace. So when you think of leadership in that regard, that's reflected upon its constituents, that means that the vast majority, at least 51%, are basically cowards, soy boys, this like woke type culture. This has become prevalent, and this is the norm in the West, in America. And that's why it's reflected in leadership, because leaders listen, the political leadership, listens to their constituents. They do listen to their constituents because that's how they get voted in. That's how they get the their donations and how they get their connections. So after their career in politics, and the reality is that people are electing these people based off of their principles. So, and this is the majority. So the minority doesn't have much of a say, even though it's a republic. The reality is, with an electoral college and with the type of political, the voting system, how it's established, and it's flawed. These leaders get in, and the other thing too is we have a two-party system. So you have lesser of two evils. You have Democrat, you have GOP, the Republicans, and they put their candidates in the special interest and the different, organizations, businesses. The donors, the largest donors are the corporations. They want their guys in there, and it's basically like a show, kind of like WWE wrestling. It's literally fake. They both are basically working for the same corporations, and it's like Gerald Slate once said, during the Trump Hillary election, he called it the reality what is it, the reality television show or something. He referred to it as like a clown show. This is before we started talking about clown shows, and he was the one that mentioned that it was going to be the reality election, like a reality TV, the madness. But to answer your question about Putin, he's a sound leader. I mean, like I said, he's educated, he's skilled. I can't really, like I said, I'm still researching on him, and it seems like he's more he's kind of a classic leader, if you will, a classic leadership style. But yeah.
Can you give us a ballpark, a broad difference between the definition? Because you mentioned authentic, you mentioned tyrannical, and you mentioned classic. I can't just grasp, because I don't have the definition.
Yeah, I mean,
what's the difference between one and the other?
Yeah, see, authentic leaders are generally people that are transparent, and they rule open societies. And they usually have a good, like I said, effective communicators. So they have a good communication loop between their constituents within their political structure as well as in leadership. Tyrannical basically is a one-sided leadership. It's a narcissist.
Stalin.
It's based. Yeah, Stalin is a classic example of a tyrannical leadership style. And classic leadership is just basically like a cookie cutter leadership. It's basically you're in a position, you know your role, and you lead by example in a sense, but it's not so much like it's
you don't inspire. The authentic would inspire. The tyrannical would instill fear, would frighten the other, and the classic would just do his job.
Yeah, it's like a status quo type leadership. It's just they're running the government. They're doing the best that they can with what they have. That's more of like how a classic leader would handle it.
I wonder, this is something I will share with you and to the dear audience if they wish to say something. It's that I wonder what image the other world, the Eastern world, like India or Japan or the other world that is not Western, have for the Western world seeing their leaders. Because now that you mention it, the representative of the public opinion that comes to my mind is Ocasio-Cortez, Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, which happens to be very popular. And I wonder, what do they think about us? Because whether you like it or not, Argentina happens to be a part of the world. I mean, we may be a second-tier nation, but we still form part of the world. I mean, what do they think about us in the grand scheme of things? We're talking about Russia, because this is my idea. Bear with me. Russia has suffered from the 90s. We're talking about guys who are guys my age, from 40, or guys from 30, who suffered the plights of the 90s and the early 2000s. That gave them a great introspection of what life should be. Also, reading the literature of Alexander Solzhenitsyn, which is required reading, which was nothing short of a Stoic philosopher, and of course created a sense of war. I mean, bear with me, correct me if I'm wrong. Do you think that the Russian middle class urban inhabitant is now much closer to the American frontiersman of the American cowboy, in the sense of drive and decision than than its American counterpart. Do you know what do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, basically, if I got your question right, as far as Argentina is concerned, um, the United States, the average American person or the average person in America is more concerned with, if they're going to be able to pay their mortgage or their car payment at the end of the month, than they are concerned with international politics. Other than what they see, that the media spoon feeds them, that's really all they know. That's the narrative for the most part, especially the older generation. They get most of their news either through CNN or through Fox News, traditional news sources. They're not getting alt media. This is alt media like what we're doing. As a social podcast and like somewhat news source. We're delivering mostly to like younger generations, Zoomers, Millennials, X Gens. So that being said, like I said, a lot of people in America live in a bubble. And I said, like, passport. Most Americans don't even have a passport. It's such a big country that they have no need to leave the country. And most people can't even afford to leave the country if they wanted to. I mean, there are people that live in certain cities, major metropolitan cities like New York City, Los Angeles. They probably never even left the state or their city for that matter because they have everything they need there. And this is similar to their view on politics as well as geopolitical studies. Average person, like I said, is probably got around a 14, like a high school level education at best. And that type of education level, they're not really interested in politics, man. They're interested in Beyonce. They're interested in, in like
But
sports and, Tom Brady,
they
that sort of
they
thing.
they are put in a very, very how do you say, unsafe position because they can be swindled, they can be defrauded, they can be well. Isn't that is happening in a way because their cultural awareness it's so low that they are open to be lied by the powers that be. This, I mean, something that happened in Argentina was that for the last 20 years the people were swindled, and now it came to a stop because in the last election, the outing the incumbent administration that aimed for re-election spent 2 points of the GDP in trying to convince the people that Javier Milei was bad by using scare tactics. But what happened was that the scare tactics were so old that nobody believed them, and hence he was elected. Javier Milei was elected president. But now what I see is that in the United States, this is not happening. I mean, with all the respect to the United States inhabitant that is noble, sane, and wants to make a life for himself, is he in danger by his own lack of will to learn? Is the American regular citizen in danger of being enslaved and tyrannized by a corrupt administration for his lack of will to improve himself?
No, they're for the most part, and this is like most people in general. They're more concerned with their Netflix and their
Distracted.
McDonald's and things of that nature. Yeah, they have a lot of distractions. However, when the economy starts to tank, that's when those distractions start to leave, and people now start seeing the ramifications of bad policies. That's going to come very soon, I believe, and that's when you're going to start seeing actual civil unrest in the United States.
Let's not forget that the United States is the most armed nation in the world. I believe that every inhabitant of the United States on average has 14 weapons at his disposal. I mean, in the average of things, every person from the United States has at his disposal 14 firearms in his house. Of course,
Yeah.
I know that I'm painting with a broad brush, but you get the idea.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a well-armed country. Obviously there was a reason for that. That because we have the Second Amendment that was put in the Constitution to prevent, basically Britain from coming back and trying to reconquer their territory, which we've seen other throughout history that has been an ongoing occurrence. We're seeing that right now in Israel with Palestine and the Israeli conflict. I mean, Yeah.
You mentioned years and months. How long do you think, as an analyst, as a man who knows his way in international intrigue, how long do you think it can take until we actually feel the pinch? Because my idea, and I could be wrong, is the purge, the image of the purge. People roaming the streets, killing wholesale without any regard of anything. Of course, this is an exaggerated picture, but let's
Right.
just put it down a couple of notches. How long do you think
It
something
could
like
get
that
to
can
that.
happen?
I mean, it
It
could
can get
get
to
to
that.
that. I mean, yeah, any country, any government, any society can get to that level. Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome style. I don't think it'll be that severe, but it's going to be bad. And like I said, it's not so much the crisis isn't going to like a financial crisis isn't going to happen overnight. It's going to take a while. So I mean, first we're starting to see the signs now. Like I said, we're seeing credit card delinquency rates going up, uh, repossession, automobile repossessions,
Yes.
credit skyrocketing, as well as foreclosures are starting to increase. And then now we're starting to see price reduction on homes, and we're starting to see homes entering the market because of that. So it will take time. It's a gradual decline, and then all of a sudden, when people start realizing that we are in an economic downturn, that's when people panic, because people don't panic until they realize that they have nothing to lose, and they're like, "Oh crap! What do I do? I've lost everything." That sort of thing.
Have you ever heard of the paper Nine Wheels? I'm sure you have. I mean, you can 9 meals away from anarchy.
Yes.
I think it would be very it's very convenient now if you could be so kind to describe it, so we can just picture it. And it's
I mean, it's that concept, like I said, that like Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome concept. Although Mad Max was a result of a nuclear proliferation, I mean, not much dissimilar to what's going on now. We have nuclear powers fighting each other. The reality is that 9 meals, like literally this supply line, if it shuts down for a
that
week,
means
that's
any
done. That food
society,
is not coming in. Yeah.
any society, no matter how advanced it is only 9 meals away from descending into barbaric subhuman civilization. 9 meals, yours at home, dear reader, me. We're 9 meals. Civilization was created to supply our meals. When supply lines collapse, as it happened in Russia, because I think that a great mirror from the past would be the collapse of the Soviet Union.
Yes.
The system, the the, the,
That's
the
in
practical
recent.
things.
Yeah, that was in recent past, and people still remember that. That's the thing. That's what's so interesting is that there are it's a huge landmass, and it was a largely populated country, and or union rather, and it's in people's memory. So a lot of people don't remember World War II. They don't remember Great Depression. There's not many people alive still that remember that. That's a distant memory. So the collapse of the Soviet Union we have recordings of it. There's lots of that. There's lots of video and writings and different things, and that's fresh in people's minds. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, and this is the thing. I'm thinking now. Talk to me about the 2008 collapse. That actually was a huge bailout from the government to the institutions. But I understand that people were playing Monopoly with real houses until the houses were in such. First, they were so abundant, and second, they were so let's say shoddy in their making that they actually have no quality. When this came down, a lot of people, I'm talking about millions. This is the thing. I mean, if any American people are watching this show, be so kind to write and to express their own experiences. Uh, how was the hurt? I mean, how long did the American? No, I'm not going to say the American people, the American culture, the American feeling of now we've weathered this storm. How long did it take for the sensation of hopelessness to a sensation of relief to happen, to transition?
I mean, it generally took what till 2014 for it to actually recover, and then right at 2014, you start seeing the recovery, and then all of a sudden by 2019, you started seeing price bidding wars on homes, and then the hyperinflation. So, and partially that hyperinflation was a result of the lockdowns for 2 years. On top of the zero carbon emissions policies that were enacted by Biden when he entered the office. So, I mean, the reality is that, um, yeah, I mean, like there's so much manipulation being done, in Wall Street and in the economy, and that's by design with a central bank. So when you have that much manipulation, it's going to cause, it's a butterfly effect. It's going to eventually cause major problems. Going back to the 2008 recession, the CDO crisis, which was the culprit of that collapse, it affected a lot of economies, Europe especially, because a lot of those CDOs and those traded instruments were heavily leveraged in Europe. And I think it was in Iceland, I guess they
Oh
were so
yeah,
heavily, yeah.
Iceland, because we have this image here in Argentina that Europe, especially the Nordic countries, are like elves who have everything sorted out. That if you want, I mean, they commit suicide because of the boredom. Think about that. Everything is solved. And when we see this image of Iceland, a nation of elves, completely figured out in a crisis, what the fuck? Especially when it happens that, and this is the thing that if there is a moral in the story, is the following, because remember, Norway had the retirement pensioners in Norway had their money invested in these fraudulent bonds, and we're talking about people who did everything right. I mean, these people, these Norwegian people who work in the 60s and 70s and the 80s, and they retire in the 90s, they put their money in the bonds and they lost everything. If there is a moral to this story, is to people who are listening to us, is don't put your eggs in one basket. Just have several venues and learn trades, because you don't know if when you're about to lose everything out of a one bad day. Um, if I was to tell you this, is this one?
Yeah, I mean, if,
Don't. You can do everything right and still lose, but it's how you react to it what's going to determine your life. Because I remember seeing really sad stories of people who just saw their balance sheets. They in England, former soldiers or retired soldiers who were elder, that saw their balance sheets. They went to their patio, to their backyard, and they just blew off themselves.
it happens.
This, yes, if you were listening to us, you need to understand this. It is my desire. If I was to give you something, is the understanding and the grasp that you can lose everything. It happened to me, and I'm sure it happened to, and you can do
For me,
everything right. You happen to you too. Did
yeah,
it
I've
happen to
lost
you?
everything. Yeah, I had an apartment, I had 3 cars, I had about 50,000 in savings, and I just got out of college. I was
Oh yeah,
unemployed for 2 years until I went overseas to take a job. I was in Europe like towards in 2010. I left and went to Europe and to Asia. Asia wasn't affected as much, so like I was able to find a job in Asia. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, it was bad. It was really bad. Like literally, there was no jobs.
And essentially, the thing is this one is that, but it's when you look yourself in the mirror and you say, "But I'm a good guy. I am educated. I did my homework, and I listened to my mom, which said, 'Don't be a bum,' and still find yourself in your last legs." So that's the important thing. Just like Josh said, learn a trade, because a trade is something that you can go to outside in the street and do it. You're not gonna be rich at it, maybe, or maybe you can, but it's going to give you three things that are essential for a man to survive: discipline, because you will, when you have a trade, you need to make out of it. You need to make something out of it, and it's going to give you discipline. You will want to work to you will get up in the morning because you want to. The second is going to give you pride, uh, dignity. You look in your mirror because you will say to yourself, "I am useful. and you'll back it up because people will agree with you, the people you've served. And the last one is loose change. This life is so much uncomplicated when you can pay for your shit. For example, something I did, I learned how to cook pastries. I'm a pastry chef. I mean, I put me into a kitchen and I will cook you something tasty for you to enjoy. And believe me, everybody eats. Just as everybody dresses, everybody needs a wall to be built. Everybody needs to practice their skills in their languages. Your main capital is your knowledge, applied knowledge. How did you manage to get out of your rut?
Like I said, I went to Asia. I took a job. I graduated into the recession from college, and I had jobs lined up, but like they just did hiring freezes, and I basically laid unemployed for a year, 2 years, and between that. And between that, I was taking any jobs I can take. I was taking minimum wage jobs like restaurants with a college degree. And
how did
yeah, I
that
mean, it is what it
affected
is.
your internal perception of yourself?
Well, I mean, the thing is that I've seen people in the past, other X gens, that like they got out of college, they couldn't find work for the first 6 months or year. So I was like, yeah, that's understandable.
Okay.
But at the same time, I was working. I worked in restaurants part time while I was in college, off and on. So I mean, it wasn't that big of a deal. But it was disheartening because it was like, I worked so hard in my college education, and I had job experience. It wasn't like I had, no, I worked my way through college. So I already had real life experience. I had job experience, and I go to an interview and they're like, "Oh, you have no real experience." I'm like, "I've been working since I was 16. These are the jobs. This are the skills that I have." They just wanted to make an excuse not to hire you. That's the reality. We got discriminated quite a bit. The X Gen and the millennials in the '08, we got discriminated a lot. So, and it's not just it's not just in America. It was all over the world. You know what I mean?
Speaking about generations, Zooms, millennials and Zoomers, and things, this is my impression. I would like to ask your opinion about it. I think the Zoomer generation is far more aware of the reality they are living in. Because at one point, the Gen Xers, I believe I'm 42, which means I was born in 1980, and I was in the end of the Xers and at the beginning of the millennials. That's me. I'm 42. But when I see Zoomers, that they are for example, Milei's main base, 65% of the people who vote for Milei are Zoomers. People who, I mean, who saw, I mentioned it yesterday, they saw the consequences of the lies of the of politicians, and they say this is not what I want. And many of them instead they want to study and they want to make something of themselves, but they don't necessarily go to college. They go to trade school. The idea is to make money and to become independent. Do you see this trend in the United States with the younger generation, people of 20, 22, instead of partying and what we did? I mean, or do you see them in a different way?
I mean, like I said, I'll say that the millennials inherited a recession. The Zoomers are going to inherit a depression, if you want to put it that way. But the best one
Wow.
to talk about the Zoomers is Unchained, if he's able to come on and talk. Posado.
Yeah, I
Since
can.
he's out of the well, he's under the weather today. But clearly, we're going to have next show. If he's
I'm here. I'm here.
available, I will want to ask him so many questions about the Zoomer generation
Yeah.
because I believe he's one of the greatest exponents of it.
I can actually speak on it. No issue.
If you wish,
Yeah, go ahead.
what do you see? Do you see the Zoomer generation as more acute, aware, and mature comparatively to what the Zoomer? Because I can tell you this: the millennials were dumb. I mean, we were completely blindsided when the 2008 crisis affected us. It was like, how did this happen? And nobody would even make two and two together that you overspent and you played Monopoly instead of building something.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody, but it was genuine surprise.
And it was cheap stuff too. The houses that were built like in the United States, because that was a housing boom. The housing boom created the collapse. It was part of the
Yeah,
problem with the CDOs on Wall Street. The houses were so shoddy and so poorly put together, they're falling apart right now. So, and there's
yeah.
lots of them, and people can't get them insured because the roofs are falling apart. They passed laws that said you've got to fix this, or we won't insure you here in Florida. They
Yep.
built Florida was one of the largest booming areas in the country. They built so many homes, and they're doing it again today. They're building shoddy homes throughout the country to try to catch up with the FOMO, fear of missing out,
But
that they're putting
but
together
as a man,
shoddy work again.
you're how old are you, Josh?
I'm 41.
Okay, so we are pretty much the same age. I mean, did you know? Do you remember that the lesser? I mean, you and I could have seen it coming, but the great majority of the millennials, they had no idea what happened. Do you remember that? The surprise and the shock.
Yeah, I mean, like it was total shock because, like I said, we weren't used to economic issues. We were told, like, basically by our parents and by society to go to college, learn a trade, work hard, and follow your heart, and the money will follow. The money never followed,
Yeah.
and
So
we're
this
the
is
most
what.
educated. We're the most educated generation in history, not only in the United
Mm,
States but in the world. And like we could barely pay our bills. I mean, it's sad, dude.
mm.
Really.
It's before letting punish Busana because I believe we're interrupting him. Because you know what I believe that we lack as our generation, and somehow me myself drive, because our parents never encourage us to go and get your stuff. Instead of be nice, buy flowers to the girl, always ask for permission, allow yourself, sacrifice for the others. They didn't tell us you deserve to make your own. I mean, it's not follow your dream, it's get your dream. Like, go beg, make money, get up early in the morning and do your stuff. It was always conform and go with the flow and follow the herd. It was never. This is something that they didn't teach us. I believe that's the thing that if you have something, how is it that you don't want to get out in the morning? See my point? They didn't give us the drive. Punish Gusano. I'm sorry. I got myself carried
No,
away.
no,
Please go
no
ahead.
worries. Hey, could you repeat the question you specifically want me to, or the topic you want me to address?
Well, basically, it's this one. I mean, we as a generation, the millennials, were completely blindsided by the effects. Because actually, if I was to tell you, we were dumb because we were duped by the lies of the Gen Xers and the Boomers,
Mm-hmm.
who told us about, follow your dreams, follow the herd and such. So we inherit this time bomb that eventually blew up in our faces.
Okay.
Now it comes back to you as a Zoomer, as a man of 22 years old. Do you see in the world that you're living, on the guys your age, do you see a more sense of maturity, of acuity, of awareness of what's going on, or they're just hamsters parading through the precipice?
Mm, I think hold up. I think Zoomers in general are very aware. I would agree. They kind of subtly understand and have a very dissident um the trap that the boomers set the millennials up for and the Gen Xers is we still fall into that trap, but only because it's like almost legally required. You have to go to school, right? But if you go look at the way like Zoomers think about school, they view it as a okay. Well, I'm here. I get they're literally holding a gun to my head. I might as well just get through this, barely make it through, get my diploma, and just I'd rather go be an influencer. And a lot of older people like to make fun of Zoomers because every Zoomer wants to be like a Twitch streamer or a TikTok star. But I really don't understand why that's such a bad thing. Yeah, a lot of the like I get it. Like, oh, the TikTok people are kind of cringe, but a lot of them make a really good living doing something very simple. So what's really wrong with it? Oh, okay, you don't have a degree, but I'm gonna make so much money these next 10 to 15 years of my youth. I'm gonna be making content that'll make me soft revenue for the rest of my life. I'm gonna get a sponsorship for a couple of years. Who really cares? You know, the guys that are struggling through college and are gonna have forever debt for the rest of their life. I mean, who's really laughing at the end of the day? So I think it's very funny. What I really think it is from the boomers is they're a little jealous and feel a little bit left behind. That the Zoomers were basically able to revolt against the status quo that they helped reinforce, and they couldn't trap them in that crap. I really think that's what it is, because the way they talk about it is the way like a jealous woman would talk about somebody else.
Good. That's very insightful, surprising as well. Because now that you mention it, do you know that in Instagram there is these kids who claim that if you follow my course, you will make this money and such and such. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I know there is a part of grifting in there. I
Yeah, yeah,
know,
yeah.
but there is also a sense of truth in that. I mean, it can be done.
Mm-hmm.
The opportunities, the technological opportunities to make serious, honest money are there because you have drop shipping. You have, for instance, I don't know, Etsy or
Yeah,
Amazon.
the gig economy.
The
Exactly.
Yep.
That's what they
exactly. I
call it.
mean, but this gig economy is actually pretty good. I mean, if you take out the things you need, because before the industrial revolution, the man's struggle was to survive, and now after the industrial revolution, the struggle of mankind is not to be bored, because I mean, if we eat and we sleep, which is, I know there are difficulties, but thanks to capitalism, 95% of human beings were able to live to abandon poverty in 100 years.
Yeah.
So it is fair to say that the plight of mind now is to keep himself busy and entertained. So there's a lot of entertainment, there's possibilities of entertainment, but many older generation, it happens to me. It's hard for me to adapt into new technology sometimes because I am so used to analog, not only analog technology, but also to analog thinking. It's difficult for me to understand, to grasp that I can make several $1,000s by clicking a button. I used to think that making a several thousand was knocking on doors, signing documents, make people sign documents, take them to a bank, staple it, and then get the paper notes. It's so simple so far. So, I mean, Josh, doesn't that happen to you? The
Yeah, I
the
mean,
the
I did all that. Like I started doing door to door knocking at like 13. I was selling newspaper subscriptions. Um, I sold all kinds of stuff. I was eager to work at 13, 14 years old as early as I could. And I'm a self-starter. I've been working hard my whole life. I mean, I finished multiple degrees. I accomplished a lot of things. I ran a business, a successful business. Um, Although I lost a lot during the recession, I quickly recovered shortly after. I mean, I didn't feel bad for myself. I was like, dude, everybody else is hurting. So, I mean, I just got to do something. And I was always thinking about creative stuff and different things that I could do to try to, regain. And, I eventually, like I said, I got back on my feet. And I've been down many times, last 2 decades, since the recession. And every time I've gotten back up and I've become, more knowledgeable. I've become harder working and much more successful. Every project that I've worked on has has been more successful than the last. And that's all I can say for people is just like, dude, if you're down and out, man, just think about, just like think about something, man. Think about a project. Think about, even if you're not making money on it, even if you're not like, even if it's just like a passion project, or if you're volunteering for that matter, you're gonna get something out of it. You're gonna learn skills,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna learn social skills, you're gonna learn like consistency and I mean, meeting deadlines. And these are all great things that's gonna help you. Don't worry about getting a job. Learn to create a job. That's the
Yep.
best advice I can give.
Yeah.
there is this
And just to add
question.
on
Oh,
to
please,
that,
please, go ahead.
yeah, it's so interesting. Josh knows about this. Me and him have talked about this for hours, man. At this point, these boomers will tell you to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and the minute you actually do that, they'll be the first ones to tell you that you're wrong. It's crazy. It's a phenomenal paradox to watch. And what I think it is, well, no, this is what I know it is When they say pull yourself up by your bootstraps, is they want you to be a company man. Dude, if I had $1 for every boomer that has told me to be a company man, I was a company man back in the day. The company took care of me. You just need to get in the company. Dude, no. The companies will destroy you. The people running the companies will destroy you if you let them. Do not be a company man. Mari, you've told me this advice. Work in corporate as few years as possible and then go do it. Yep, and then go do your own thing as soon as you can. As soon as you got it, go do your own thing. That's really
Yeah,
what it
learn
is.
your
Boomers
skills.
want you to be them.
Learn
They
your.
want you to fuck up the
Yep.
way they did.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
we put
Learn the
this into
skills.
perspective, I'm
Oh,
sorry,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. One
Sorry.
thing that if you put
I
it
just
into
want.
perspective, I'm sorry, Josh. Please go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Sorry. Sorry.
No, I'm just saying, like you said, learn your skills early, and then like that's gonna help you later on. But go ahead.
If we are to tell you this, the elites are essentially company men. The elites, the
Yep.
people that we fear are destroying the world, destroying our soul, polluting the thing, and everything. You know what they are? Company men. They're in essence company men who pat in the back, who pat each other in the back, who if they wouldn't look at you in the eye if they were on an even field. They wouldn't look at you in the eye if they were on it, but they get all together, they conspire, and then they come up with these schemes to shit on you, and this is the result that we have because of the mindset of company men. So if there is a moral in the story among the other things is, dear listener and dear reader, dear listener, do not become a company man. Companies will suck your soul dry. uh, Politicians are the political party is the company. Businessmen in the company. Or let me tell you this, please, Josh and Punish Gusano. What do you think Japan's company man, the meek
Horrible.
little man who works himself to
Horrible.
death, and then you find him dead because of overwork, and
Yep.
nobody gives a shit about him.
And then wait until they hit recession, like what happened during the '08 recession, where their wives divorce them and then
Mm-hmm.
leave them with nothing. You know,
Yep.
yeah, that's very common in Japan.
Yes, so this is the thing, and you're right. We were just saying this. Zoomers who are listening to us, get your shit together. I mean, this is the thing. Oh, I got this one. Just listen. Monetize your goofiness. Find a way to monetize your goofiness. That thing that you do that you like doing, that everybody says that's goofy, that's silly. Learn the way to monetize it, because you got nowadays. I just found out last week that there was this Chinese TikToker who made like $1 million by advertising for 5 seconds products. Like she got this shirt, she got it, and then she got it for 5 seconds, and then she threw it away. She got another hat, 5 seconds, threw it away. Apparently, she did that for 2 weeks, and she made like $7 million about it.
Good for her.
There are ways for you to become prosperous and abundant
100%.
without needing to sell your soul.
100%.
Uh, yes, that's what I wanted to reach. I mean, if we were to tell you something, dear reader, dear listener, is uh, to never lose your soul. I mean, you can get hired, but never be bought. Uh, Monetize your goofiness. Um, you will find envious people. You will imagine, just assume that tomorrow, after you wake up soundly, because your conscience is clear, like we always said, assume that tomorrow you will meet an envious person, a hostile person, a hypocrite, a liar, and they will all, without the real intention, because it's not because they want to do something to you. It's their own nature. They will want to hurt you, but it is not your room. It is not your place to hurt them back, because it's like hurting. It's like getting angry at the sun for shining too bright and burning your skin. It's their nature. So what you must do, and I'm telling you this because I'm sure, Josh, it happened to you. I mean, you can't fight stupidity.
No, no. I mean, it's like I said. I'm looking at it, and I'm seeing the decline in real time. And I was one of the first. Like, I honestly, like, I was saying clown world like 5 years ago before it became popular, because I was like, this is a freaking clown show. Like, I'm looking around, and it's not just the United States. I travel around the world a lot, because of my business. I work on various projects overseas, and it's a clown world, man. It's a clown world. And I mean, I'm just seeing the decline in real time, and you're just seeing like the people's like the people. It's like charging down the Death Star. It's like just in the stupidity, man. It's just people are
It's
getting
like,
dumber and dumber every day.
yes, there's this joke. The movie Idiocracy was not a comedy; it was a documentary. Do you remember the movie Idiocracy?
Yeah, we that was our cold opening last episode.
Exactly.
Yeah, about Brando. It's like what's in Brando? It's got electrolytes. It's like, well, you need water to like, grow plants. It's like, no, use Brando. It's got electrolytes. It's what plants crave. So people are like they're repeating, they're like repeaters, man. They're repeating in the echo chamber the same stupid like mentality, like trust the science, that sort of stuff. It's like
Exactly, man.
it's just
This is this
it's a
is
slogan. That's all it is.
yeah, because it's a thing. You know the way that they control you. This is, I mean, Josh, I'm sure you're gonna love to listen to this. It's that because the main aspect that a man that they realize what a man wants. You know what a man wants? A sense of belonging. So what they
Yeah.
do is that you will belong to a community if you toe the line. The line it says you need to repeat what we say because we are the community. So what happens? They, in order to belong, they shun the free thinkers. This is not this is not a conspiracy. This is not the globalist. This is eternal. This is human condition. And if you want to become the real elite, you must learn to be alone in order to think, in order to listen to your own thoughts, to your own thinking process, and to be able to make sound decisions based on your own rationale without the influence of others. So, I mean, Josh, how many times were you alone and saying this isn't right? And people trying to convince you it is right, but then in the back of your head you have this little voice that says no, it's not because of these, and you ended up trusting your own judgment.
Yeah, I mean, generally, like the reason why I've been so successful in my life is because I don't listen to my parents and I don't listen to boomers, and I make rational decisions based off of logic over emotion, and you know, basically rational decisions. And I do my due diligence before I jump into anything, especially if it's like buying a car, like anything. My daily routine is literally like, what am I going to do today? And I'm rationalizing it. And if I any purchase, like I'm going to go buy, some shaving cream. It's like, well, are there parabens in it? Is there anything toxic in it? What's the price point? Is it decent? Is it a decent product? I mean, am I going to get my money's worth out of it? And I think of things when I buy things, I look at it as an investment as opposed to an expense. And when I had that concept, when I understood that concept, my situation improved quite a bit.
Loneliness isn't a bad thing. It can hurt and it can be anxious to when you won't relate to another. But like anything, once you get used to it, you will discover benefits.
Yeah, I understand.
You will discover benefits, and those benefits are essentially that your intelligence. That means your capacity of separating the wheat from the chaff in your own convenience. And I'm not in a noble way. It's going to increase. You will become more intelligent by being alone with yourself in your own company. You can call it meditation. You can call it doing sports and going to the gym, running. I mean, have you noticed that, for example, Haruki Murakami, the Japanese writer, is a Japanese ultramarathonist.
I didn't know.
You know,
Yeah,
and
yeah. Go ahead.
please
Sorry.
go ahead.
No, I haven't heard of him. What is it? What is he exactly? What does he do?
Haruki Murakami is a writer. Is a very respected and awarded writer and Japanese. And he confessed that he actually writes his book in his mind while he is running. So
Oh
he runs
wow.
for a whole day straight. I'm not. This is not an exaggeration. He runs and jogs for about 36 hours nonstop. Of course, he drinks water and he does, but you know what I mean. And then in his mind, he's writing a book. And when he sits down, the book is already written in his head.
You like
So
Forrest Gump?
yes, I mean
In a
the
sense, yeah.
mental. This is the thing. I mean, at one point, the bell curve, the similarities in the extreme of the bell curves are striking. I mean, I remember one day listening to some guys who were actually very very low on the IQ curve that says, "I am not going to get vaxxed." Okay, they were not going to get the vaccination. Okay, because it doesn't feel good. Okay, and then you go to the other side, the very high intelligent people who says, "I am not going to get vaxxed." Why not? Because the data won't add up. Okay, you got on both sides of the spectrum, you get the same results. As ironical as it may seem, because the dumbest and the smartest go to the same conclusion, leaving the huge rest of the average fending to themselves. Isn't that an irony?
Yeah, it's very ironic.
But eventually, what the explanation could be is that you need to be alone to make decisions.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like I had said, like or like I always say is that with men, their alone time is their creative time. And you know the best way to self improvement is to find